right, recording has started.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our November Data Reporting Monthly Data Managers Call. It is here. We are at the 10th hour, so we have some information for you today. As always, the goal is never to stress. We're going to talk about child count, future data reports, our monthly meetings and resources, and also state of team contact just as a way of information for you. So we're going to get right in. We're not going to waste any time. At the end of our meeting, we're going to stop the recording for any additional open discussion. We do not want that to be a part of anything that is posted on the website. So we want to make sure that we have a clear break in any open discussions that we may have. Okay, so our child count date was October 22nd. That means that any student that is enrolled and receiving services in your district as of October 22nd should be included in your report. That also includes students who have expired IEPs. They should be a part of the report as well as it pertains to the compliance side of things. The compliance side is totally different than the count, but we do want to make sure that all students are counted on this report. Remember, your demographics information comes from PowerSchool. That is your son's ID, race, ethnicity, gender, the multilingual learner status, the age, which is the date of birth, district code, district name, and student's name. That all pulls from the PowerSchool side of things. So if there's any issues with those, your PowerSchool is going to be your first line of defense. As it pertains to eligibility status, disability, placement and environment codes, or LRE, those things are going to be unique to EdPlan, and that's where those corrections are made. None of these fields should be blank on your final report. So if you do, there are some corrections that must be made. And remember, corrections should always be made at the source level within the system. We will have some workarounds for this. But we'll talk about those things a little later on. And just remember, once you download your report, to exclude or remove students that are in test schools um, and test students from your report before uploading to SCDE. Okay. The first thing that we want to talk about is the grade levels. And on the left-hand side, I was able to obtain a report of all the, I guess, the core key grade levels, if you will. And so -9 is to be used when students are enrolling in your system or you're adding them in PowerSchool and you're not exactly sure what that child's grade level is or should be. That's when you would use that code. But as soon as you know the child's correct grade level, you are to go in and make that switch within the system so that the student's grade level would appear correctly. Um, there should be no students that shows that are 2 years old on your report, because the report is from ages 3 to 21. So if you have students that are appearing, I know that's a grade level thing, but it kind of goes hand in hand. The age kind of goes hand in hand with the grade level. If you are seeing a -8 or a -3, those are invalid codes in PowerSchool, and those should be corrected in your system. If you are seeing a -2, -2 is the same as pre-K students who are 3 years old, and -1 are pre-K students who are 4 years old. Any students that's appearing in the 99 with a 99 for grade level, those are students who have graduated. So they should not be on your report if they have graduated or if there's a student with a 99. So that definitely needs to be corrected. Um, Students that are in adult ed, you want to try to use whatever the system grade level is for those kids. AE is not a grade level, it is a location. And Z1 through Z4, those are 12th graders. So 12th grade is what should appear on your report. So if you are running into issues for whatever the reason is, and you're not able to make these corrections within the system, or something is preventing you from making those corrections in the system, go ahead and make it in the Excel spreadsheet. We are working with some folks in order to get these pre-populated so that whatever comes out of PowerSchool, it is converted before it gets into Ed Plan. So we are working on it behind the scenes, so that these true grade levels will not be displayed on any of our reports, but we're actually using the system grade levels. But in the instance of -8s, -3s, those should not appear on your report. And -9 is a temporary placeholder and should be corrected as soon as you know the student's correct grade levels. Okay. Okay. Now we want to talk about the placement, LRE codes, primary disabilities, and case managers. Okay. So there are some instances where the placement code or the LRE code are not appearing within Ed Plan, and it has to do with the transition of systems. If yours is blank, then you need to make those corrections within the Excel spreadsheet. If you have written an IEP on the student in Ed Plan and it's appearing blank, then those needs to be corrected within Ed Plan using the edit key date component within the system. If your case manager, you have students and your case managers are coming up blank, those have to be corrected in the spreadsheets. And that's appearing because the student was active on 10/22, but have since been inactivated in your system, and we're running the report later. The system does not capture case managers for students that are inactive. So you can manually add that into the Excel spreadsheet, and that is allowable for this submission. We're hoping that in the future, we'll be able to still pull in the case managers for students that are inactive. It is the case manager component is a verification or validation way component that you could use to help you account for all of the students within your district. So the spreadsheet that I'm referring to, basically you would log into EdPlan, run your child count report, and you're going to download that spreadsheet in order to make the corrections. And then you have to add that back into the system or upload it into the system in order for us to get it at SCDE. And whatever corrections you make within the spreadsheet, those are the corrections that we will receive. What if the child is a community speech that is not enrolled and we have been leaving? No, you need to go in and either put that child with a pre-K 3 or pre-K 4, whatever the appropriate grade level is. -9 is only a temporary holder. It is not a valid reporting code. -9 is only a temporary holding code. Let's see. What if the grade level is showing as pre-K? Do we delete those? No, you don't have, if it's showing pre-K, you don't have to delete it. Pre-K is valid. It's just that they had some quirky things going on in the system, and I do have a slide later on that's going to show what are allowable grade levels for pre-K students. Okay. All right. Additional student corrections. Okay, so we know that you have students within your district who have expired IEPs that are not showing up on your child count report. I met with PCG on Tuesday afternoon, and they created a report for me. And so what I'm going to do is add those students who with expired IEPs back onto the aggregate report once I get all of the district stuff, district's report. We are going to give that information back to you so that you could put your eyes on it before we tag that as the final, before we start certifying counts, and let you tell us if those students should actually remain on your report or if they should actually be removed. So we will have a clarification period where we're pulling those students with expired IEPs back onto your report, and you will tell us if they should be removed or not, just as one last means of cleaning the data before we prep it for federal submission. Okay. Um, PowerSchool and EdFi issues, just kind of knowing where to go and who we are. Merging the universe of how we do things and how things are structured. I know that some folks are having some issues on the PowerSchool side with adding students, so forth and so on. And you're really going to have to talk with your SPED directors to really push the issue to align processes and streamlining students. I know that there are also some districts that are having issues because on the PowerSchool side, they don't want to add the students because they're missing documentation. Guys, that is not a reason for a student with disabilities to not be added into the system. Um, I will tell you, caution you that it is the quickest way to get a lawsuit by not adding those students into the system. So you want to get them in the system and worry about getting the additional documentation, get supports in place to help you get whatever documentation is needed. But you cannot not add the students in the system. They have to be added into the system. And this information is also confirmed with our folks, with our counterparts at SCDE as a PowerSchool SCDE counterparts at the state level. So if your PowerSchool coordinators have any issues or qualms about that, have them to reach out to the SCDE PowerSchool contact, and they will confirm this, what I'm saying to you. So if it's a PowerSchool issue, it's demographics or EdFi, you're going to have to work that from the PowerSchool coordinator standpoint. We're not sure if it's a PowerSchool or if it's a Ed Plan issue. So go ahead as a precaution and get the tickets submitted. So at a bare minimum, one, it helps to gauge at the state what's going on in the district, what issues are happening. And as always, if it's a child count issue and you, for anything pertaining to federal reporting, you want to make sure that you add the name of the report in the Zendesk name to help expedite it. And once I'm done with this call, I'm actually going to hop on another call with them. And so I want to remind them of the report names that should help escalate the tickets when they see it coming through the system. Okay. For your early childhood verifications, once you download your spreadsheet, and I kind of wanted to talk you through this process to kind of help you see how to check before you upload your data to SCDE. So for early childhood verifications, right? So we know that those students are your students that are age 3, 4, and 5 who are straight pre-K. So for those, once you download your report, you want to add a filter to the first row. And then you want to scroll over to the child count age and select ages 3, 4, and 5. And then under the grade level, and this is the part that I was talking about earlier, where you may see multiple or different types of grade level within their system. So you may see pre-K, you might see a -1. Those are your pre-K 4-year-olds. You might see a -2. Those are your pre-K 3-year-olds. And they had a streamline, a straight pre-K 3 in there. So all those are considered early childhood acceptable grade level values. So if you see those in your system, you want to make sure that you select them to help you narrow in on the students that should be. When it comes to the LRE placement, we want to deselect the codes that are allowable to help you see the ones that are incorrect. And so those are the codes that either needs to be corrected within your system, or those are codes that needs to be corrected within the Excel spreadsheet before submitting to us, okay? Students that have ISPs, those values will be changed at the SCDE to the value that is highlighted in of what you see on the screen. So we're going to change any students within your system that have ISPs to other location, regular early childhood program, at least 10 hours. And we're going to make that happen at the state level. If you see a grade level of PK3, P3, I'm assuming it's supposed to be comparable to PK3. Just make sure that the student is 3 years old when you are working on that information. And if the student is in fact 3 years old, then the grade level is PK3. Okay. Okay, so likewise, when looking at school age verifications, you want to clear out the filter because we don't want what you had selected for early childhood. When you're working with filters, sometimes it's very easy to get lost in the weeds and forget that there's a filter on. So we want to go ahead and clear up the filter, and you'll see clear beside the filter icon within the, I want to think it's in the middle of the Excel spreadsheet. So if you click on clear filter, that's going to take all of the filters that you have selected off, and it's going to allow you to start over fresh. And so you want to go then to the child count age and make sure ages 5 through 21 are selected. I think there's some other off age in there. And we probably will have to address those on a case-by-case basis, but I wanted you to see exactly what is allowable before we get into the corrections, right? And so under grade levels, we want to make sure that only grade levels 5 through kinder, which is also 5K through 12th grade. Those are your valid or allowable grade levels within the system, okay? Um, and once again, I know that there's some off grade levels in there, but if you want to see what is allowable, this is the process that you will have to address. And any underlying factors that's out there, then we'll have to once again address those on a case-by-case basis. Under the LRE placement, we want to deselect the ones that are allowable, which are the codes that you see on the right-hand side for permitted values. And I saw in some of the spreadsheets, PPPSC is not a valid federal reporting code, disability code, placement code, I'm sorry, for early childhood students. So if you have PPPSC in your database, you if those are actually are students with ISPs, because I'm thinking that's who they are. And those students, if you can confirm that for me or make the change within your system to the 10 hours per week, then that'll help guide me in the right direction. But when I have the final verification, if we have any that's still pending, I will highlight those and ask for clarification. So be comforted in knowing that there will be a second tier verification process by the state to help assist it with any issues that you may have omitted while making corrections. Once again, if the students, school age students with ISPs will be mass coded to parentally place private schools. And I was able to see in at least one district where in the school age file for ISP, CDE semicolon ISP 5K. So I was able to make that conversion, but I wasn't able to see that same like setup for the early childhood. So that is something that we will definitely need to get clarification on from PCG when we meet with them later on today. But this follow this logic, and that's going to help determine if you have any LRE codes that's not applicable to the age and grade level within your system. You're probably going to see some of your early childhood grade levels, in particular to 5K, because this is really where we see it at. We had that 5K pre-K, kinder, with the students who are 5K and pre-K, within the enriched system that's kind of hanging up in the new system. So hopefully once you have your start having IEPs within the PCG system or within Ed Plan, that should start to clear up, and we should not have that in the future. But we do have to get the data cleaned up within your system. For our enriched districts, similar to what you've done before, you want to download your child count report, follow the same verification process for early childhood and school age that the Ed Plan districts are using. You want to check for blanks in those required fields, make all the corrections in the spreadsheet. You will also need to make sure that your corrections are made at the source level as well. But for this verification, you're going to make your corrections within the Excel spreadsheet, upload it into ADT, and then send an email to me at the Special Education Services so that we'll know that you've completed it, and that's going to help us with your submission of your data for our tracker. Let's see, can you repeat again the process for school age and PPPSC? Okay, so if you know, for students that are early childhood, PPPSC is not a valid LRE code for those students. So yes, if I'm telling you that it's not a valid code, so it does need to be corrected. And if it is in fact a student with an ISP, you're going to change it to other location, early childhood, at least 10 hours per week, the highlighted code that appears on the early childhood verification. That's what those students should have appearing on their report as the LRE code. Does that make sense? I think that was Sonia that asked that question. So for school age IEPs, I'm going to change those at the state level, because they have a clear code in there that lets me know that those students have an ISP. There's not a clear code for early childhood that I was able to see within the report. So I don't necessarily know that those PPPSC students are actually students with an ISP. So I'm going to need your help in deciphering which code to use. What if it's a walk-in and get speech-only services? It doesn't matter if whatever. You should go through your process of identifying and making sure that students are receiving appropriate services. I'm assuming that if it's a walk-in student, that it may be sounds like a student with an ISP, but I don't know. You would have to tell me a little bit more information on those. And that would come in a separate conversation. So send me an email to make sure that I understand what you're saying, Connie. I didn't get any preschool kids. Could have ISPs. I'm not really sure, Jenny. Let's follow up in a separate conversation. I want later on when we go off the recording, I want to make sure that I understand your question when we open it up. Okay. Okay, some important notes, and I pulled this off of the checklist that I sent last month closer to the child count date. Pre-K students cannot have a school age placement LRE code, okay? Likewise, school age students cannot have an early childhood LRE placement code. Residential facility and separate school are valid LRE code, LRE/placement codes in both categories. Every student must have a case manager assigned. I know that case managers are not necessarily required for federal reporting, but it is a means to help assist in making sure that all students are accounted on your child count report. Okay, so if their case manager is coming up blank, just go ahead and manually add it into the spreadsheet, just so that we'll know that that student is in fact or was accounted for on your by a teacher within your district. Students as identified as developmental delay, 10 years or older, as of October 22nd. Um, it is a federal error, but if you can correct it within your Excel spreadsheet before sending it to us, we're just going to have to submit it federally with that error, because we do want to make sure that all students are accounted for on the child count report. And that is a change from previous years, because previously we would exclude them, but moving forward, we are reporting them and with a data note explaining why the reevaluation was not completed. Don't forget to include child count in the Zendex name to help expedite federal reporting tickets. Students that are no longer eligible or not receiving services, special education services as of 2020, 1022, and are still active in school, which basically means that they've been dismissed from special education. You want to make sure that those students are not appearing on your child count report. And yes, I will send a copy of the presentation. I was just waiting until after I meet with the folks with PCG. Make sure that you end their special education program, which is slightly different. This just basically means that the students have been dismissed from SPED and they should not be on your child count report. You have to end their special education program within the system, within EdPlan, which they will still be active in PowerSchool. Likewise, there are students who are no longer in your district, no longer receiving services. Those students will need to be removed on the PowerSchool side to stop the feed into the EdPlan system. Okay. There should be no blanks for race, ethnicity, age, gender, date of birth, son's primary ID, multilingual status, gender, LRE placement. You want to make sure that there are no blanks on those reports. Under reporting ER, wherever multiracial appears, those will be converted to 2 or more races, and that will happen at the SCDE level. Remember to remove any students that are a part of a test schools or test names from your report. Before you upload to SCDE, you want to make sure that those lines are removed from your report. And one way to test that, typically your test students, from what I've seen, will not have a son's ID number. So that should be one red flag to say that these students probably should not be in my system, because all students should be entered on the PowerSchool side with a valid son's ID number. And lastly, every student must have a case manager. Just repeating, if the student was active on 1022 and now the case manager is coming up blank, that is not something that you can correct within the system. So you're going to correct that within the Excel spreadsheet before you upload to SCDE. Okay. Future reports. So thinking about what's coming down the road, there has to be a data cleanup within the EdPlan system. I am not putting a timeline as to when that is. I guess technically I am putting a timeline, but I'm not saying that you definitely need to clean that up. You need to have that submitted cleaned up by tomorrow. As the year progresses, this is going to be, I would say, a reoccurring thing that you may want to work into your system. looking at your data, looking within your system, seeing what's wrong or what needs to be cleaned up, and get those things done by the end of the school year, so that when we roll around to child count next year, we're not having the same issues talking about cleaning up the same data in the same manner. As you start completing IEPs within Ed Plan, a lot of well, I say a lot, but I don't know. I'm going to say that it should go away as we start having or completing IEPs within the system. Um, Students that are no longer enrolled in receiving special education services should be exited or withdrawn from your power school. Those are students that have been dismissed from special education services. All right. Um, you have to look to see the report that was created. I see students that had IEPs that expired back in 2020, and they're still showing up as active. So that's data cleanup that has to be made within your system. Um, we are not worrying about that PPPSC report right now. We'll cross that bridge a little later. Right now, it's more important for us to work on the child count and getting that data cleaned before submission. Like I stated, as the year progresses, we will have discussions about it, but right now we have to work through what is required. Not saying that PPPSC is not required, it's just used in a different manner. So we're going to postpone that for now. We are not going to have a November systemic verification check for indicator 7, 11, and 12 because it has bottlenecked with child count. So we're hoping that February we'll be able to implement that process so that we can start looking at those datas as the year progress. I have given them a heads up that they will probably start seeing tickets coming in for those errors as districts start checking their data to determine what's wrong with it as a means of helping them clean it. So I have given them heads up that there may be tickets coming in on 7, 11, and 12. And I do want to put a plug in for the discipline data. Guys, that did not work the way that we thought it was going to work. We are having some hiccups in getting the data in the same format. We're going to talk about this a little more in depth in maybe our January or February discipline meeting, but I would encourage you to start looking at your Power School data for discipline to see what's going on with that. Let's see, is there certification due date? I have not purposely talked about certifications yet because before we can get to certification, we have to make sure that the data is correct. Typically, um, I will tell you when to certify your data. And that's going to happen after we at the state have ensured that all of your data is accurate and correct. So the certification process, we will tell you when to certify your data, which is also the date that will be used in your EdFi system as certification. So the two should align. Um, let's see if this submission, is it still due tomorrow? It is the expectation that it's still due tomorrow. Once again, whatever you submit tomorrow, there will be another verification once we get all of the data and look at it from a state level. We will send back to the districts like we have in the past for clarification or another means of correcting anything that is wrong within your system. We will still do that process, but we need to see what's out there before we get to that point. I still don't understand how or where to upload the correct spreadsheet in EdPlan. I believe there was a documentation on one of the calls, on one of the EdPlan calls, that talked about how to add those spreadsheet back in there. I've added that document into the resources, into our resource location, so that you should be able to open that guidance and figure out how to open it up. Karen, I can't speak to it with fidelity right now because I'm not as well versed in that process, but there is a document that I've added in the resources to help guide you through that process. Okay. Um, Final meetings and future meetings. So for our FY 2023 final reports, your 7, 11, and 12 and exiting data for 2023 should be uploaded into ADT by end of day tomorrow, 11/22. And that's going to be your gauge as we approach February 2025 and completing our SPP APR report. And that data should be comparable to what you will see on your IDEA data profiles. So we definitely wanted you to have an opportunity or see what that data is going to look like before you see it on your profiles. And some of this data will also be used on your determinations as well. As I stated earlier, the Table 5 discipline report from PowerSchool, what we got did not align with what you guys had and how you received it within your reports. So we don't have a definitive ETA when we will get that data to you, but we are working on that. Hopefully, we'll be able to get it to you by the end of December. We definitely want you to see what's going to be submitted federally before we finalize that in February. We still have not received assessment data for Indicator 3. The Indicator 8 closed on October 31st, and I don't know where parents got the survey codes from. I have a lot of data that I cannot connect back to the source. So we're having some conversations about how to mitigate that moving forward. We do have a couple of change in our processes and how we're collecting the survey that I think will help with that. But for 8 and 14, we will definitely need the district's help with that. So we'll talk a little bit more about it on one of our future meetings, but I just kind of wanted to put it in the atmosphere of what we're looking at and what we're up against as we're changing systems and out with the old, in with the new, and also in with the unknown new, right? Because we don't really know what we're going to get. I also did want an opportunity to tell you about a new indicator that's coming down the pikes, and we as a state will be reporting on this indicator for the first time in February of 2025. We're going to share more information with you on it. It is a compliance indicator, and it's going to be based on the corrections of non-compliance. The target is 100%. So thinking about those for indicators 4B, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, your indicator data from the program reviews and data from your fiscal findings, right? You know that those corrections has to be made within 1 year of the official findings. So indicator 18 is looking at those corrections of non-compliance, and we are reporting back to the feds whether or not those findings are actually completed within the 1 year mark, and if not, why. And there is an additional component, but it's all based on what is required by IDEA. And when we talk about this in our next meeting, I will have that full list to you so you'll know exactly what IDEA requirements is being referenced when we do these reports. So there's no misunderstandings about the corrections of non-compliance or what those actual indicators are, the requirements that are not being met according to IDEA that has to be reported. Our monthly meetings, typically we meet on the third Thursday of every month at 10 o'clock, but it is also the same time that PCG is meeting with us at the state. And so we are switching our meetings from the third Thursdays to the fourth Thursdays. So once this call is over, you should be getting a meeting, a cancellation or something that's moving our meetings from the third Thursday at 10 o'clock to the fourth Thursday in each month at 10 o'clock. And on those instances where the fourth Thursday falls on a holiday or when there's no school, we'll talk about what we'll do in those instances. We'll pull the floor to see what date or time will be better, which date and time will meet the needs of the districts best, okay? Our data reporting resource locator, this is the link. You'll be able to access, if one of the team members could put the link in the chat, that would be great so that folks could just click on it and see. I've been trying to update all guidance in this location so that you could have at your fingertip. One of the things that we do want to do is pull the floor to see what types of reports you want to see within the system so that we can start creating those reports for you to help guide you through this process, to help guide you through checking your data. So we're going to need your input on what types of report you would want to see. And so we'll try to get something out to you. Well, here's what you do. Send me an email. Send an email to the Special Education Services email folder with the type of report that you would want to see, what fields you would like to see included in that. We're going to start building these report at the state level and similar to what you used to see in the Enrich Hub. We're going to push it down from the state level so that everybody will have it, okay? We're going to start creating those resources for you. Okay, and Yolanda just placed that Google Drive link in the chat for you. As always, this is our contact information. Anything that you want to send to us, yes, you can send it to us directly, but we do ask that you send that to the Special Education Services so that if someone is out, the time your request, your concern doesn't go unnoticed, someone is able to get to you, respond to you as soon as we can. Let me scroll through the chat to see if there is any more. I still don't see. Is there going to be an in-person data meeting at any point? We wanted to. It did not work out that way for fall admin. And right now, for a spring admin, they're looking at something virtual. But yes, we can definitely talk about an in-person meeting in the future. Absolutely, Karen. Absolutely. We can have those discussions. We just need to make sure that it doesn't conflict with we're approaching the spring. And so if we're talking about having something in the spring, testing and IEPs, there's a lot of things that happen in the spring. So we need to make sure that it doesn't conflict with that. Okay. And that is all that I have. Just wanted to make sure I hadn't missed any. Okay, no, you did not. That is all that I have. We still have about 18 minutes left. We're going to ask Albert to stop the recording and we're going to unmute the participants just to have open discussion, open dialogue about what's going on. Like I said, I don't see or necessarily know all of the issues that you are experiencing. So we do kind of want to pool the room, not to kill the vibe, but just to kind of get an understanding of the challenges that you're facing with this new system and how and what we are doing to address those concerns.
All right, give me one moment and I'll go ahead and stop the recording.
Thank you.